So some news broke the other day that I thought was kind of weird, right? You know, because you don't typically see anything like this in the headlines. You don't generally see ideas like this actually, well, come to fruition. But the weird thing is, the more research I've done into this, it seems like this is actually a very familiar concept that has been happening in the United States for well over 200 years. And it's kind of crazy because when you think about something like this, it sounds almost like 1984-esque. I mean, the concept of a mega corporation building a city that people live in, work in, do everything in, basically, just sounds creepy. You know what I'm saying? And it more or less, with the newer companies coming around, it kind of reinforces the scare of these companies, like, basically having so much control over our lives. I don't really think this is a good thing, and I don't think that this is something that people should be just blatantly and ignorantly unaware of. So, the main topic of today's video is Google. I don't really need to explain what Google is. It's one of the biggest companies in the world, obviously. And Google, over the last few years especially, has been kind of looked at as a company that has so much control over our daily lives that it's ridiculous. They make smartphones that people use. They own the dominant web browser in the world. They own things like YouTube, okay, where a lot of people get their entertainment. They own email services like Gmail. They run pretty much the biggest ad network in the world, so a lot of the online and digital marketing goes through them. They control so much stuff as is that it's already kind of worrisome, you know? The home assistants like Google Home and things like that. Google basically at this point has probably as much control over the average person's life as the government, if you really think about it. With all the products that they have that people use all the time, they can honestly manipulate a lot of things. They really can get in the way and do a lot of crazy things, and I think a lot of people don't really think about that enough. I think here, especially in the United States, we just kind of push that thought out of our head, you know? Yeah, Google, they can't really do that much, can they? Well, Google is currently proposing the idea of a new city, basically. They call it a mixed-use campus, but it's a 40-acre city, basically, in Mountain View, California. The plan includes a mixture of office spaces, housing, retail, and event spaces. So this is going to be a city. I mean, they like to use fancy words for it and whatnot, but I mean, what else do you call a large swath of like a population center that has housing, has restaurants, bars, cinemas, parks, streets, infrastructure, things like that? What do you call that? It's pretty much a city, man. There's no way of getting around it, is the way I see it personally. So, Alphabet/Google, they've been in Mountain View for a long time, but they are planning to remodel 40 acres of the city into this quote-unquote mixed-use center. They call it the Middlefield Park Master Plan. It could include up to 1.33 million square feet of office space, 30,000 square feet of retail-type use, potentially 1,850 housing units, and 20,000 square feet of civic and event space, and 12 acres of open space. Now, the city of Mountain View requires developers to include residential space with large-scale commercial building. And according to the Middlefield Park plans, there's up to 6 residential buildings containing between 1,675 and 1,850 new homes, with up to 20% of the residential space being affordable housing units. Now, you might be sitting there thinking like, oh, Optimus, that's not such a bad thing. What's the problem with Google basically revitalizing and rebuilding a large part of this city? You know, what's the problem with that? Well, the problem is that this isn't going to be a publicly owned area, right? It's not going to be like, you know, your average city, right? You know, where it's basically property of, you know, the people who own the buildings and whatnot, and the government, of course, owning like the parks and the government buildings and things like that. It's not how this is going to be. The vast majority of this plan basically retains all control to Google. So pretty much everything there is going to be explicitly owned by Google. It's going to be their 40 acres of city. They are going to be in control of that. Now, most of the open spaces will still be accessible to the public and whatnot. The parks, the recreation center that's possibly going to be used for a soccer field and an aquatic center. And like I said, this isn't a new concept, and I think that's why a lot of people don't really worry about this, because company towns, as they've been called, historically have been a part of the United States. But you have to think, you know, a lot of the company towns that were built in the United States were built in the past, right? You know, it was maybe a logging company that moved out into the woods and built a city there, right? Or maybe it was like a large farm, okay, that built out in the middle of like a suitable area to farm. We aren't generally talking about a global conglomerate that has the ability to influence what people think, that have the ability to manipulate search results on the internet if they chose to, or a company that has the ability to have so much control over everyone's daily lives. And what this kind of thing leads to is Google claiming more control. You know, you think about some of the things that Google doesn't have right now, right? What doesn't Google have? Google doesn't have the ability to have their name over you in the lease. They don't own the property that you might be leasing from them. They don't own maybe the cinema that you want to go to, or the aquarium, or, you know, have the park that you want to go to. I know I'm getting like conspiracy-esque here, but like, you know, imagine you're working at Google, right? You're leasing a house from them in this new campus or whatever they want to call it here. And you do something or say something that the company doesn't like. And what do you do if they evict you? Huh? I mean, like, you gotta move and go get a new job, and it completely throws your life into chaos just because you did something the company doesn't like. Like, we're slowly coming to this point where these companies that have so much control are gaining even more over us, to the point that, like, they realistically could control pretty much everything they wanted. And this isn't the first company to do this. As a matter of fact, this isn't even the first time that Google has proposed something like this. As a matter of fact, they actually proposed a larger one 10 miles south in downtown San Jose. So those plans are still undergoing city approvals through 2021, but that's an 80-acre campus, quote unquote, and more than 7 million square feet. It would have a major transit center, corporate hotel space, parks, and of course tall buildings. And other companies are kind of taking suit, okay? So Facebook, Amazon, and Microsoft have all basically proposed their own company towns. So in Menlo Park, California, Facebook is planning to build a new campus that has 1,500 residences. We'll have a walkable retail district, a grocery store, and a hotel. Now these would be available to the public, of course, but also Amazon is announcing that they're building a second headquarters. And this is all back as soon as like 2017, 2018, and it would effectively turn that chosen city into a company town. It's going to be called HQ2, and approximately 50,000 of their employees will work there. Now, Amazon already chose the location of their HQ2. It's in Crystal City, which is in Arlington, Virginia. Now, the reason that a lot of this is happening is actually pretty understandable. So, especially in like Silicon Valley and in other tech locations in like California, for example, you gotta think, you know, the tech bubble that's kind of built up in Silicon Valley and in, you know, Mountain View and all these other places in California, it's really only kind of started to pop in like the last 40 years, right? As the internet started to grow, a lot of these companies, they're internet startup companies, you know? Facebook, the internet. Google, the internet. Amazon, the internet. Computers and the internet have basically built some of these giant corporations, and you know, they go and they try to headquarter in these places, but there's not enough affordable or livable housing in these areas to outright actually move headquarters there and to, like, you know, develop the area and whatnot, because employees obviously need to live near the HQ of the building. So a lot of these companies are kind of taking their own initiative instead of relying on local governments to build new housing and stuff, and they're just kind of doing it themselves, which, like I said, is understandable. But the idea that these giant conglomerates are moving into these cities and just building their own minor cities that their employees are going to live in and things like that, that's pretty fucking creepy, dude. Like, it kind of worries me. I don't know if maybe I'm overreacting a little bit here or whatever, but that just sounds bad. And I don't know about you guys, but I just simply would not want to live in a city that was built by the workplace. Like, if YouTube announced that they were building a fucking massive city for creators to go live in that could house 50,000 employees and would have all this stuff, you wouldn't see me moving there. Like, I'm not gonna go live in YouTube City because Google and YouTube built it, right? I think it would be weird to, of course, get home from your 9-to-5 job, and the house that you own, or you're supposedly buying or whatever, is basically built and operated by the company that you work for. You want to go to a local coffee shop, you know? It was started basically and ran by the company that you work for. You want to go kick it at the park that was built by the company you work for. You want to go to the McDonald's that was franchised by the company you own for. Go hang out at a friend's house and maybe, you know, watch some basketball or something in their house that the company owns. It just, I don't know, man. Something about that sounds weird, and it sounds unnecessary to a certain extent. I mean, I understand these companies, they have to have places for their employees to live, work, and play, but at the end of the day, dude, I just don't see this being something that is normal. I don't see this being something okay. Like, if I offered you guys the opportunity to go live in a fucking city built by Google, most of you would be scared. Because that's weird, right? You know, Google already has like a terrible reputation when it comes to privacy and all these other issues. Same thing with Facebook. I think the last thing I would want to do is live in their city, bro. Facebook, you'd be lucky, you know, you get a house or something. that shit didn't have cameras and microphones in the walls trying to find out what you're wanting, you know, so it can serve you ads or sell your fucking political affiliations and interests to the, you know, the highest bidding company. Something about this just doesn't sound right, and as more of these companies pop up in California making a shit ton of money and growing into global organizations, the more of these little quote-unquote campuses we see getting built. And while ultimately it may be a good thing, I think right now it's probably safe to, you know, err on the side of caution, to be prepared for the worst in a way. So, I don't know. With that being said though, thank you guys for watching. If you did enjoy, make sure to leave a like. Subscribe if you're brand new around here on the channel. Follow me over on Twitter and Twitch at subtooptimus. Make sure to check out Shop Opti down below. Thank you to my channel members. Your support helps my channel tremendously. And until my next video, guys, this is I almost said Operation. That was weird. This is Optimus messing up his own name and signing out.